Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Sorry for being late. I've had to do birthday shopping for 3 people at the same time, and they're not easy to buy for. Then there's the deluge of Yang news going on, and as you know, I'm not good at calling a stop to an episode's topics when there's more to go, so we've got a longer episode. Tomorrow will be mostly UBI news. For today, there's action on the debt ceiling, the Forward Party, and ranked choice voting. Let's get to it. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Shay Meehan and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. First off, the debt ceiling crisis has been delayed. In the face of the GOP blocking a debt ceiling raise and Manchin and friends refusing to alter the filibuster, Democratic leadership got Manchin's grudging cooperation to delay the debt ceiling fight until December, when they plan to stuff it into the reconciliation bill right alongside the kitchen sink. I was just thinking we needed more writing on that piece of legislation. GOP leadership has vowed to allow the U.S. to default on its debt rather than work with Democrats. The debt ceiling has been raised dozens of times. It is used by the minority party as a threat to obstruct the party in power and extract compromises. Trump, as always, saying the quiet part out loud, said of McConnell, quote, "He's got all the cards on the debt ceiling, it's time to play the hand," end quote. The debt ceiling pretty much does nothing but facilitate obstruction. Next, we're back to the Forward Party business. The website has been fleshed out. It now has mission statements, policies, FAQ, etc., so let's see what we can learn. First, we have a couple mission statements that reinforce that it will be an advocacy group rather than a party, for the most part. I'm skipping some fluff bits here, but, quote, "We need to push for open primaries and ranked choice voting in congressional races around the country. This is an inclusive movement. You can participate while retaining your current party registration if you'd like, as we know that in many locations, deregistering would effectively disenfranchise you from your local politics. Forward is positive and practical. We believe in people of every political alignment. We will support candidates for office who align with our core principles so we can reform the system and make it more responsive to the American people. This means that we will support Republicans, Democrats, and independents, as well as candidates identifying themselves as Forward Party members. We will also work with organizations that are promoting democracy reform in order to promote policies such as ranked choice voting, open primaries, and easier ballot access for third parties," end quote. So all of that seems pretty in line with what we expect. Then we have some answers to what we really want to know, courtesy of the frequently asked questions section. Quote, "Will the Forward Party support or run candidates?" Yes, the Forward Party will support candidates for offices from local to national. If you are a candidate who agrees with the Forward Party's core principles, you can apply for support here. We will support candidates running as Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and any other party who supports our goals, starting with open primaries and ranked choice voting. Are you concerned that the Forward Party would just be a spoiler? Due to the current electoral process, in the vast majority of races that the Forward Party will be involved in, the candidate is likely to be running as a member of one of the major parties. End quote. So they will support candidates, mostly from the duopoly, and due to current GOP stances on democracy, mostly Democrats, as well as a few independents. As expected. Now for the concerning one, quote, "Will there be a forward candidate for president in 2024? It's too soon to tell. If there is demand for a third-party candidate, the Forward Party may look to address it. The Forward Party may hold its own primary process to nominate a candidate." End quote. This one is straight poison. The number one thing that can doom the Forward Party is Democrats thinking it will get Trump reelected. This answer does not dispel that fear. How it should read is, we are not currently planning to run a presidential candidate. We will reconsider if RCV or other non-pluralistic voting scheme is adopted. That is what it needs to say. I get that they want to retain the option because maybe Democrats try running Biden with an approval rating of go F yourself, making a third-party Yang run the only hope of defeating Trump. That's probably what they mean by if there is a demand for a third party. It's all too possible, but as Yang himself says, third party winning the presidential is not realistic with the current rules. Even though most Americans would prefer Yang to Trump, the anti third party barriers in the election system and possibly vote splitting could still give Trump the win. On the other hand, anything that leaves the door open to forward being a spoiler is going to sink this effort right to the bottom of the ocean, if it hasn't already. We need to get them to change this and get Yang to be definitive about it every time he talks about the party. This needs to be about congressional democracy reform. Message Yang and the New Forward Party Twitter if you agree. There's also a thread in the description with all of this information. Next up, we have the guiding principles of the party, which all candidates will have to promote. These are ranked choice voting and open primaries, fact-based governance, human-centered capitalism, effective and modern government, UBI, and grace and tolerance. There's a description for each of those, but they don't add much specificity. But then there's also the policy list, which currently consists of the American scorecard, term limits, ranked choice voting, open primaries, independent redistricting commissions, data rights, ban on revolving door for politicians, citizens portal, Department of Technology, automatic tax filing, democracy dollars, the American exchange program, civic juries, and accessible and secure voting. So mostly democracy reforms. A couple of oddities in there like data rights and automatic taxes. We don't have time to go over the details of all of them today. We will do that another time, but I will mention that their definition of open primaries is, quote, everyone who wants to run for a given office enters the same primary and the top vote getters go on to the general election. Candidates can identify with a party or not, end quote. So as far as I can tell, they're actually arguing for jungle primaries, not open primaries, plus ranked choice voting, of course. Not sure what the point of keeping a primary is at that point. Probably to narrow down the candidates before the general election, but that really just incentivizes people to continue to ignore the primaries and wait for the general election, which is already a big problem. It's why we have 10% of the population electing almost all of our representatives. Andrew's been making serious rounds to promote the party and his book. In just the last few days, he's been on CNN multiple times with Anderson Cooper, Don Lemon, Reality Check, and Wolf Blitzer, as well as on Good Morning America, The Young Turks, the Sam Harris and Karen Hunter podcasts, even on Fox with Tucker Carlson. I think my personal favorite was the informal interview with the Fung Bros, though Karen Hunter is also great as far as I've gotten through it, just as her previous interview of Yang was. What was most disappointing around these was the people blithely writing off Yang in the comments for one superficial reason or another, and particularly on the Tucker interview. Pretty dominant Twitter comments trying to cancel Yang just for going on there, much as when he did the same thing during the presidential race. It's fundamentally absurd and demonstrative of the tribalism Yang is trying to mitigate. You don't change anything by hiding in echo chambers and complaining to your clones. If you want to make progress in a democracy, you have to convince the people who disagree with you. And if you want to do that, you have to speak to them. I know these are advanced comments, so tell me if I should slow down. We should want these people hearing more reasonable perspectives, not less. What was most surprising was the host of CNN's Reality Check being allowed to express a lot of sympathy for a third party. He gave a great review of the facts around the viability of third parties and independents, how they often work within the duopoly, and how it's a very different situation running state and local races versus presidential. Otherwise, the cable appearances were very brief and nothing new. I haven't made it through the podcasts yet, but all the interview links are below if you're interested. Finally, for today, I'm pleased to announce that a bill called the Voter Choice Act has been introduced in Congress, which would provide $40 million in federal grants to cover up to 50% of the cost, along with other assistance, for switching to ranked choice voting for local and state governments that choose to do so. Basically the same thing that's in the Freedom to Vote Act, but as a standalone. I'd prefer it include approval and star voting as well, but I'll take it. Let your representatives know your thoughts. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the Forward Party website and clarifying information, your favorite interview, and the RCV bill. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the Resist bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.